Hi, thank you for joining us. Today we're going to go through the common problems of Agile adoption and how the Certified Agile Leadership class gives some of the tools to help address those. So I'm going to do some screen sharing and walk you through some information. Some of this is also summary of previous work that we've done that you might want to take a look at. And we'll pick up from there and continue on the next steps and try to tie some of those things together. So let's take a look real quick on what the common problems are. And I'm just going to share my whole screen. The top problems of management. So let's first start off with the top problems experienced in Agile adoptions. Now, what I'm looking at right here is the annual State of Agile report from version 1, and I've scrolled down to the top problems. So I'm looking right now, and this is the most recent report that had come out in 2020. And these top 5 problems you can see, let's just walk through those real quick. According to over 40,000 people surveyed, and roughly 20 to 25% of those surveyed are management on up to senior leadership. The respondents are saying the problems with going Agile is, number 1, general organization resistance to change. Number 2, not enough leadership participation. 3, inconsistent processes. 4, organization culture is at odds with Agile. And last, number 5, inadequate management support and sponsorship. So those have been very consistent over the last 10 years. What can we do to address those? So let me walk through a few things I do think the Certified Agile Leadership course really gives you tools to do that. And I'm specifically referencing the Agile Leadership journey content of the Certified Agile Leadership course. If you go to other Certified Agile Leadership courses from others, you'll get different content, and I can't necessarily comment on that, although I have been to several other Certified Agile Leadership courses. I'm going to walk you through my preference, which is the Agile Leadership Journey Certified Agile Leadership course, or what they call Leadership Awareness 2-day class. So first of all, I'm going to jump over to the overview of the Certified Agile Leadership course according to Agile Leadership Journey. So day 1 is the Agile Leader, and in that we're kind of developing this idea of growth mindset and catalyst habits. So growth mindset being I'm open to feedback, I'm learning and growing, I don't have to have all the answers. Catalyst habits, it gets into the how do you give and receive feedback, how do you ask the right kind of questions without solving people's problems. So we're kind of tooling up a manager to be able to engage and work and be successful in an Agile environment, because there's a lot more uncertainty and unknowns, a lot more things we have to just figure out. Day 2 is about the Agile organization. So how do you lead change, and what does that look like to move your organization from where they are currently to the kind of organization they would like to be? So let me move into those quickly as a review. So first of all, the Agile leader is moving from being an expert to what we call a catalyst. So the majority of management is in this expert or achiever phase. That is, they are the smartest person in the room. They have all the answers. We're trying to move them into this area of growth. If you haven't seen this explained, do take a look at the video, The Agile Manager's 3 Steps of Growth. That's on our YouTube channel, and that kind of fills in some of this information. Just as a little bit of a detail, diving into that, the expert leader commonly is the one who really does get all these great results. If only we could clone this person, much more productive or successful in their mind if they are left alone in their office, closed door sessions or one-on-ones where they can kind of make things happen and drive those results. They are the smartest person. That's why they got promoted in the management. And they're very good at task level details, putting out fires, not necessarily fire prevention. If they can, they grow over into this area of achiever leadership where, yes, they do work with others, but it's kind of like to make things happen according to their view of reality. That is more like influence and manipulation. Are you on the bus or not on the bus? And they might see people as a means to an end. That is, people are resources and trying to drive towards real results using people for that. So that's kind of where we're looking for the day 1 to try to move past those levels of management. Now, on day 2, as a review, we talked a lot about the competing values framework. You can see right there. And if you're not familiar with competing values framework, do look at our YouTube video on that, where we walk through the competing values framework. And really the goal of this as a precursor is moving from trying to bake in culture from the outside in and trying to move from this culture we want and move that out using structures, metrics, and policies. So just as a review, back to the common problems and partly we're trying to solve, but this is a common problem reported by the 40,000 people taking the survey, and that is there is an organization culture that is at odds with the Agile values. So, and plus the organizational resistance to change. So yes, trying to bake in Agile, that is bolted on, co-opt someone else's process, rent someone else's framework and jam it in, that's not your company's culture. That's just trying to inject something in, and the culture will reject that. As they say, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So it's going to push that out. And we want it to not only not be pushed out, but make it lasting and engaged. So we start with culture and move out. How do we do that? That's the competing values framework. One, say what kind of culture do we currently have and what kind of culture do we want to become? And the second part is in another one of our videos where we actually map out experiments. Let me just show you as an idea what those experiments are that helps you move your culture. So these experiments would be such as we're not having job titles anymore. We want to become T-shaped people. We want to reduce the number of roles. We're going to use feature toggles. What's our view on an organizational heartbeat or using Scrum of Scrums? Maybe we cap defects, no more individual assignments. There's dozens and dozens of experiments you could run. In the end, what the manager is trying to do is figure out these experiments, those are the little cards in there, that will help us move from one kind of culture to another. Again, look at the video where we pick examples and walk through a few of these to say, this, I think, is something our group can do that does move us towards the kind of culture that we want to be. And then whatever you try out and works, that's what sticks. Now, back to our point about the day one, the type of manager or leader that we want to be, because we're trying to move this catalyst. Why does that matter? Over here on the side, you can see this organization, for example, on policy sides, we're trying to move from a bureaucracy towards an agile organization. Why does that matter? Well, as one example, in the May 2017 Harvard Business Review, they did a survey of over 7,000 people saying, what does it look like in terms of bureaucracy? Now, here's the interesting thing is I think we might say, yes, it's bureaucracy. Look at the scores of the CEOs and senior leadership. Basically, 25% of them think it's a problem. More than double the rest of the people in the organization say it's a problem, right? Bureaucracy is just deeply ingrained. People with bureaucratic power don't want to give it up. Frontline employees don't have the information skills. They need to be more autonomous. Bureaucracy is seen as necessary to get control. So we're trying to move away from that, for an example, and that's obviously a problem. Partly, senior leadership doesn't see that, and we need to equip both management and senior leaders with the kind of awareness and tools to do just that. So I'm going to go back to this example of a catalytic leader at the far end of that scale, and they can help move from comprehensive rules towards simple guidelines, from a global prescription for everything towards local autonomy, moving from a kind of a culture of there's consequences if we miss dates or exceed scope, versus learning from failure. We're trying to move from assigning jobs to people based on their roles to just inviting people in who want to pull work in, moving away from controlling employees to trusting teams to figure out things and get them done and give them a safety net to do just that, and run towards more flexible systems. That's the means of getting there, but it does take this kind of leader that we're developing, exposing those descriptions, habits, traits to within the class to move from the traditional, which is the majority of management. It's more control and bureaucracy based. They're successful through getting these kind of results, driving things in the way that we work here, versus this catalyst leader where those experiments, those ideas we went through, that's how we learn. It's safe to fail, so you can try things out. I might be wrong, so the leader doesn't have all the answers. They have the wisdom of crowds asking other people in the way that they collaborate. They see people as assets, not resources, because I'm tapping on them to come up with the ideas and how they work. And it's many to many, which certainly is an agile approach of collaboration, individuals, interactions. How do we leverage that? So we need to help move them towards those, becoming more coaches to be successful in that shift of here's the experiments we're going to run to try to become that kind of culture. So just to wrap up, what's in it for me if I go to that class? I'm looking at these top 5 examples. That addresses, number one, the organization resistant to change, because we're starting with this culture and moving it towards a certain culture. That Agile is a means to an end now. That is the goal. Yes, we have leadership participation because now they have awareness and tools to use to help guide and lead that. inconsistent processes are addressed because these teams are co-opting patterns and practices that work for them. The culture is not at odds with that device because it's the bridge that gets us there. And management is able to truly support them and sponsor them because they know that role that they can play to equip their people to be successful and create an environment where they can run these experiments and try things out and find what really works and dial in for your particular organization. So that's a very quick summary of parts of the Certified Agile Leadership class, the Agile Leadership Journeys version of that, and how that addresses the top 5 needs, the top 5 problems that we run into classically with an Agile adoption. I hope this has been of some help for you. You can look at our current classes over on rocket9solutions.com/certified agile leadership for upcoming courses, either in person or online. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and we look forward to hearing from you.